I've known Jonathan Cahn for a long time, and I've watched God use him in miraculous ways. He's a New York Times bestseller. He's an international Christian leader. But most of all, he's a prophetic voice to America and really to the whole world. I'm Don Black, and welcome to The Calling. I recently had the great joy and privilege of sitting down with Jonathan and talking to him about how he, as a young Jewish boy who was an atheist, first learned to hear God's call. Thank you so much for being here on The Calling.
Great to be with you, Don.
It's my pleasure for people to get to know you a little bit better and hear your heart and see the vision that God has placed in you. Now, my first question is really kind of simple. Let's go back. When you were a young boy, could you have ever imagined what God was going to do with you?
Absolutely not. Not even close. Young boy, I was growing up Jewish. If you asked me, would I be preaching the gospel? That would be like the last thing. And then at one point I was an atheist, so I was the last person you could ever expect. I mean, I'm the least likely. You know, Paul said he was the greatest of sinners. I was definitely the least likely ever, so no, not in a million years.
Well, tell us about your growing up.
I grew up in New York State, outside of New York City. My parents were scientists. They met while they were studying together. My father had come from Germany, and while he was a child, Hitler came to power. So he was persecuted, and at one point, the German Jews sent out their children to be saved. Basically, it was called the Kindertransport. So they sent him out. He ended up in England, in Canada, in America, and then met my mother. So I was raised in a kind of secular Jewish home. In other words, my father kept the holidays, went to synagogue twice a year, Passover at home, Hanukkah, but nothing really more than that. I knew I was Jewish. I knew there was something about that, but wasn't really spiritual. But they put me into Hebrew school. So in Hebrew school, I learned a little Hebrew, which I forgot completely after that. And then I was shown film strips about Isaiah and Elijah and Moses and the God of Israel who was real. But when I was 8 years old, I became an atheist. Decided there's no God because I didn't see the connection. There was a disconnect between what I saw on the film strips about the God of Israel being alive and speaking to the synagogue where I never heard God speak and never heard even God in people's lives saying, hey, God changed my life. It just wasn't there. So I became an atheist at 8 years old. And that lasted for a little while, but then I started losing faith in atheism because I said, this doesn't work. There's got to be something. You can't be nothing behind everything. So I started seeking for answers. So I started reading every book I could get on science, religion, the occult, Nostradamus, UFOs, everything. I knew there had to be more, but I didn't know what. And so one day I picked up a book that looked like a UFO book. I mean, because I had read these UFO books. I thought it was. And that year they put this other book in the same kind of appearance. So God tricked me because it was The Late Great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey, which is all about biblical prophecy. And so by this time, I had been opened up to the supernatural because of all the other books. And I had Jesus. Well, Jesus is in all the books. It's okay, yeah, I read about Jesus in the UFO book. But it was all about how what the Bible said in ancient times is coming true now with Israel and all that.
Right.
So that excited me. So I said, wow. So God got me that way, but I wasn't saved. But in my head, I was saying, hey, this is great. I started opening up the Bible, the Old Testament's all we had, the Hebrew Scriptures, and seeing how all the prophecies of the Messiah were fulfilled by Jesus, the one who, I always thought he was Catholic, and he can't have anything to do with it. So what is he doing in this book, Bethlehem? What's he doing in our book? Mm-hmm. So I started believing in my head, but I wasn't following it. But I'm telling all my friends about it. And even though I'm not saved, I'm winning my friends to the Lord.
You are. You're winning people to Jesus, even though you haven't accepted him.
Didn't know him.
Well, at that age, as a young man, what were your dreams and aspirations? Some boys want to be firefighters, want to be police officers. Did you have something that...
Not many Jewish people want to be firefighters or police officers. My son, the firefighter. But I think I was into art. I was into science. I mean, earlier on, I thought maybe scientist. Then I had a rock band when I was a teenager.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was a leader of a rock band.
What did you play?
I played guitar. I also played keyboards.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I'm not saying we were any good, but we did play. So we thought of that, rock and all that. So that by that time, that was it. In fact, that's why I didn't want to give it up. I thought that, if you follow Jesus, you have to give up everything that's good in life and become a monk,
Yeah.
So I'm telling my friends about it, but I'm not living it, And finally, the time went on. I said, it's not just Jesus and or the Bible and Nostradamus. It's the Bible. That's the only thing that's true. It's not just the Bible. It's all focusing on this one Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah. Yeah. And then ultimately, it's not just that. You can't just be telling people about it. Because I was telling people, I was preaching in class. I was at a speech class. I'm preaching, and people are coming to the Lord. So finally, I said, I realized I had to give my life to, or I had to get right with God. Right. Telling people He's coming back, but I didn't want to. So I made a deal with God. Which is very Jewish. I made a deal, and I said, Lord, if you give me a long life, I'll accept you when I'm on my deathbed. So that was the deal. Now, right after I made that deal, I was almost killed twice. Oh. The first time was a car accident. It was a miracle that I didn't get killed. And the second time, I'm in a Ford Pinto, and it's night. I'm heading to a train track, and it's a dangerous track. People have been killed there. And there's a light flashing on, and cars are crossing. So I'm saying, well, let me just make sure that the train is gone. So I go up to the track. I didn't really know where the track was. It's on an angle. I go up, and I look, and I see a light. The light doesn't look like it's moving. It was the train. It didn't look like it was moving because it was coming head on to me. Oh. I was on the track. I didn't realize it. Oh. And so I said, let me, just to be safe, let me back up a little bit. But now their headlights are back of me. And so I backed up a foot. I thought I was just being safe. Anyway, I was still in the path of the train. So I'm waiting for the train to come and on that track in this Ford Pinto. And the train comes, plows into the Pinto. The Pinto goes up like aluminum foil. Oh, the only thing I could get out was to call out to God in that moment. The car was destroyed, and I didn't get a scratch. Wow. So I got out of there. The police were there as headlines. I got out of there, and I said, Lord, can we renegotiate? And so I said, let's make a new deal. Here's the new deal. I'll accept you now when I turn 20. That's the new deal. 20th birthday.
How old were you then?
I was 19.
So 1 year.
Yeah, about. Yeah. So I said, just don't kill me until that happens. So finally, I reached my 20th birthday, and like a man whose contract had run out, that's what it was like. I said it. I have to do it. And so I was really afraid of getting killed. And I said, I'll do it. Nobody was leading me, really. And so I didn't know how to get saved. So I found a mountain, because I remember in Hebrew school there were mountains and gods. So I said, I found a mountain, went to the top of the mountain, found a rock, kneeled down on the rock, and I gave my life to the Lord. That's how I came, because of a train. If it wasn't for that train, I don't think I'd be saved.
Well, that's an amazing story, how you negotiated your way into the kingdom.
He's a better negotiator than I am. I didn't realize.
I'd like to know more about your family. Are you married?
I am. I was not married for most of my adult life, and I didn't think I was ever going to be married. I mean, as a pastor, I was a single pastor. You had a lot of women who all heard from God that He told them they were all to marry me. I said, unless I have the calling of Solomon, this is not working. So I learned to be protective and very cautious. So I finally, at a certain point, I said, okay, Lord, I'm never going to be married. I'm okay with it. That's it. Not being married. That year, this woman shows up, just when I said no. But what happened is my wife is from Brazil, and when she was 13, 14, and 15, around the time, several different groups of believers had prayed over her, and they all said the same thing to her. They said, there's a man across the world. He is Jewish. He's of the tribe of Levi. He ministers around the world, sounds the shofar, and you are going to be his wife. Prepare. You're going to be his helper. So prepare yourself. Get ready. So she starts reading all about how the Levites prepared to actually help the priest. And she has some Levite blood. She's part Jewish, and I have the priestly blood. So she's preparing that. But then nothing happened. She didn't say, what's this? It was crazy. Then she was in America. She said, I want to go to a Messianic congregation. So somebody brought her to Beth Israel. And one of the prophecies said that as soon as you see him, you're going to know. And so she sees me. I'm walking around. She doesn't know I'm the leader. Oh, no, she says, I know that man. Who's that man? He's been to Brazil. They said, he's never been to Brazil. She says, but how come I know him? And so I see her afterwards. They introduce me, and I see her, and I actually was upset because I just made this thing, I'm not going to be married, and I go home to the Lord. I said, Lord, why'd you do this? Because this, if I was able to be married, this would have been the one. So why do this? So it ended up, I went very slowly, and she didn't speak English, I didn't speak Portuguese. The first year we communicated by sign language. and I had a computer, and when I type in what I want to say, press the button, and then it would come back in Portuguese, and I'd speak to her in Portuguese. Everywhere we went, we had this thing. So and the thing is, but she never told me those prophecies. She would never tell me, And I only found out because I was called to go to Brazil right after, and I met her mother, and her mother didn't know it, happened to tell me. So we kept it very quiet because we kept it for 3 years. After 3 years, we announced to the congregation there was a relationship. The 4th year we got engaged. The 5th year we got married. And the other thing is that her name is Renata, which means born again. And she was born when I was born again. When I was born again on that mountaintop.
Really?
When I was born again on the mountain, she was born and given the name born again. So she's as old as I am to the Lord.
Oh.
I didn't plan that. So and then we have two boys. One is named Eliel. He's 4 years old, and the other one is named Dael, who is 2 years old. They're Hebrew names.
A lot of people feel they're called by God to do ministry, but it won't start until they meet their potential husband or wife.
I mean, if the Lord revealed that, that's one thing. I mean, I'm saying, but if not, the main thing is serve the Lord anyway. Wherever you are, serve the Lord. You have something to do. Bless other people. You'll be blessed. Put God first. Whatever He has that's His best will be added to you. But don't be discouraged. Serve the Lord. And you're not better off or worse off married or single. Both are a blessing, but God will bring His best by putting Him first in all things.
Mm-hmm. When was it that you first felt God's calling on your life?
I think on one hand, before I became an atheist, I had a sense of God and a sense that there was some calling. I mean, this is early. This is as a little kid.
No, yeah.
I had that sense, But then it kind of disappeared as you get older, and I became an atheist. I got saved when I was in college. I was in the middle of college as a history major, and I got a very strong calling that I was to be in ministry full time. And I didn't know what to do because then I graduated college, and do I go on to graduate school But meanwhile, early on as a believer, when I was a year old, people asked me to start leading their Bible study. They had no leader, so I started teaching. So I'm teaching a Bible study, I'm ministering, and then I finished college. So then I didn't know what to do. I felt led not to go into graduate school, but I was called to ministry. So I checked with, say, Jews for Jesus and other ones, but I didn't feel that was the thing. And so I prayed. I said, Lord, just give me something that you would do. Give me something that you would do. So He ended up leading me to a job working with disabled children. And I worked with disabled children while I was ministering Bible school, Bible studies and all that. I was ministering, but I was working with really kind of the humblest of people. And that was the Lord's training, because you have to be humble, and you have to take care of the needs of the least of these, my brethren. So I did that while I was ministering for a few years. Meanwhile, this little outreach called Beth Israel at the time started up, and the person there asked me, can you help me start it? I said, I'll help you, but I'm called to a ministry. One day I'm going to leave to go into the ministry, so I'll help you, but for now, So I helped him, I helped these people, and then one day the leader of that ministry left, and they said that we have to close it down if you don't take it. So he asked me to take it. So all of a sudden, I'm being asked to lead this congregation, very small, it was like 30 people. And I said, Lord, I don't know that I want that. I said, Lord, if you want me to do this, I know I'm not supposed to give you fleeces, but I'm giving you 6 fleeces. 6. And you have to do them all, you have to the end of the month.
You're back to negotiating.
Yeah, it just comes. Back to the end of, you got to do it by the end of the month. By the end of the month, every one of them God did.
All 6?
All 6, He did. And so I said, all right, Lord. So I went in, and it started with, about 30 people, Beth Israel. It's now the Jerusalem Center as well. And it started growing and growing and growing and growing, and that's how it came. But the Lord kind of, I knew I was called, but I didn't know exactly what.
If the calling is a blessing to you, I ask that you subscribe, that you share it with your friends, and make comments. God's call on your life is never changed. The Bible says the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. Go for what God has for you, and you will live your best life.